I work hard, but if I got to everybody, they're going to stop you. You're going to miss out on something.
We're getting ready to begin, and we're collecting questions. During the debate, you could, well, it's a forum, really. It's not a formal debate. But when the candidates are speaking, if something occurs to you, you can still submit a question, so don't hesitate. And those questions need to be specific to Dutchess County. They shouldn't be about who's going to win the World Series or maybe what's going on in Washington. So what we're going to do is to have the clerk's race go first and then switch to the DA race pretty quickly. There won't be any time for you to get up and mill around because we don't want to lose any time. And then there will be a little break when the county exec candidates come in because I have to draw for order. But we are going to start now. And I am Dare Thompson. I'm with the League of Women Voters, and I'm past president of this league, which is the Mid-Hudson League. It serves both Dutchess and Ulster. And I live in Ulster. We try to have a moderator who doesn't vote for the people that are coming up, so they don't have any opinions, theoretically. You're welcome to join the league anytime. It's a nonpartisan organization. We turn 100 this year, not all of us, but some of us are getting closer than we like. But the league grew right out of the suffrage movement. So when we celebrate next year women getting suffrage, that's when the league really went into business because we needed to educate those women and get them voting. And we're still doing it, and now more people keep coming along and needing this. So that's what we're here for. So you're welcome to join. Men have been members since the 70s. All right. I want to thank a few people as you get settled. First of all, the Wallace Center. It is so nice to be in this space. We were going to be in one of the rooms back there, and they said, well, considering the group and the activity, we'll move you up to the auditorium, and we appreciated that. We appreciate your being here in the weather. Good going. Sure, a few people are at home. We appreciate the candidates. They were great. Everybody's here. They were perfectly willing. They were courteous. They were great to deal with. We don't always have that. We also appreciate Karen Holloway and Maria Quackenbush are back there helping us. They're fairly new members, and we appreciate them. So they've been helping you get questions taken. Now the screeners of the question is down. I think she's down. I don't know where she is. But the questions need to get, and I think Maria and Karen are going to make sure that they get to Jen Clark. I have a light right in my face. I can't see. There she is. Okay. So Jen is our local league vice president, and she is a screening. And our timekeeper is Cindy Bell. I know she's down there. And she will be trying to keep us right on track. We try really hard to be fair. If one candidate goes over, we try to be a little bit nice to the next one if he goes over a little bit. So it evens out, but we're human, so we do our best. We can get going then. So would the clerk candidates please come up? All right, they drew for position, so if they get number one, they get to start, and then for their opening statement, and then at the end, they will be second on the closing statement. And, oh, I lost my cheat sheet, but Kenya, you got number one, right? So she'll be starting, and go ahead. Cindy's right.
So good evening. First off, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having this event this evening. It is a joy to, every time I come in front of the candidates or potential voters, I'm excited and elated about another opportunity to be before you to tell you who I am. My name is Kenya Gadsden, and I am the candidate for Dutchess County Clerk. I have spent the past 26 and a half years servicing adults with intellectual disabilities down in New York City. I oversee 6 group homes for that organization. In that responsibility, I have 85 employees. In addition to that, I have to have fiscal responsibility and I have to have managerial oversight. I have been doing my job at over 90 percentile of what the state expects. What that means is every time the state comes in to audit my facilities, I meet or exceed the needs of what the people there have at that time. I am a mom, I am hardworking, I am a community advocate, and so with all of that, you ask why is she the candidate for Dutchess County Clerk? Well, I have what it takes to lead Dutchess County where Dutchess County needs to go. So fiscal responsibility, managerial oversight, bringing a team together that will take us to the next stage. Thank you.
And I should have said her full name. That's Kenya Gadsden, right? And now Brad Kendall.
Well, thank you, everybody, for the opportunity to be here this evening. I am Brad Kendall. I'm the county clerk. I was born in Chicago and moved with my family to Beekman in 1961. It was an economically and socially diverse community, just what my parents were looking for. I went to Arlington High School, graduated with a National Merit Scholarship, and then attended Williams College, where I double majored in English and Barbara Kendall, who I've spent the rest of my life with. After college, we started a construction company, moved to Dover, and started a family. And for 30 years, I built homes for families throughout the Hudson Valley. After building our home in Dover, I became involved in our community. I served on the planning board and the county legislature. All those experiences have informed my work in bringing compassionate, cost-effective, and innovative experience to the county clerk's office. We've embraced the 21st century technology in our delivery of services. New document management systems to put 2 million pages of documents online, helping Dutchess County be recognized as the #1 digital county in the nation. E-filing of Supreme Court cases, saving time and money, e-recording of land records. Thinking differently, thanks to our county executive, partnering with Abilities First to image over 1 million pages of tax records in our long-term storage. And digitizing our oldest court records funded by 7 years of grant funding from the New York State Education Department. I look forward to tonight and thank you for your questions.
I'm letting you applaud the opening statements, but and you can applaud the closing statements, but during the questions, let's not, so that we have more time to hear them. And now this will look a little odd to you, but we go back and forth with who starts answering a question. We're going to let Kenya Gadsden start on this one, and then Brad Kendall will start on the next one, so it'll be like he's answering twice in a row. You'll see what I mean. It feels a little weird. All right, the first question is, what is your stance on the new law requiring the provision of IDs to citizens? How do you plan to implement them, the laws? Oh, the person didn't say non-citizens, and I'm just trying to read it, and I didn't get non-citizens.
So first and foremost, as the clerk, you are responsible for upholding the law. And so I will have to carry out what the law institutes for me to do. Currently, there are trained people in place that currently look at documents for those people who are not in this country. And so therefore, those same people will be responsible for ensuring that the documents presented before them, if the state and the law stipulates that this is what we must do. As an elected official, you must, and I must, carry out the law. Anyone who is an elected official who decides not to carry out the law should resign from their position. Thank you.
So I've been pretty consistent on this. I was clerk my first year in 2007 when this came up. If I had been in the state legislature, I would not have voted for it. There are a lot of deficiencies within the law and a lot of contradictions. I agree with my opponent that as county clerks, we follow the law. And if the law is in effect on December 14th, Dutchess County will follow the law. We're in a holding pattern right now because there's a lot of litigation. So it's a little strange. I met with the commissioner 2 weeks ago in Dutchess County. They're faced with trying to figure out how to go forward with the possibility that we're not going to go forward. And so they need time for procurement, but we are going to work with them and try to do the best we can for all of our residents of Dutchess County.
All right, and then you'll be next. The next question is, how do you plan to meet the upcoming demand caused by the new Real ID requirements next year?
Well, it's not upcoming. It's been growing for the last 2 years. And part of the problem has been, New York State has an 8-year license. New York State waited to the end of 2017 to offer the Real ID license. It's a complex transaction. It takes a lot of time, and there's several obstacles, one of which is since 2009, New York State has underfunded county DMVs. The retention rate we get does not pay for our operations. We spend more on providing DMV services than we receive in revenue. So that's a first problem. Second issue is, as I say, it's complex, and the information has not been terrific coming out of New York State, but we are working diligently within the county clerk's office to get that information out. We've recently hired 6 new employees, 3 of whom are fluent in Spanish to address this, and the possibility of the other licenses. We also installing new queuing systems in Poughkeepsie and Wappingers, which will go online in November, which will allow for online appointments and text messages when you're getting close.
So unfortunately, Dutchess County is behind in the time. There are other counties, our neighboring counties, they already have appointment systems. So therefore, something such as this is a matter of ensuring that someone gets an appointment and they get seen in a timely fashion. It is unfortunate that the wait time at this current point at DMVs are 2 hours or 2.5 hours. And so therefore, that comes from a lack of planning. So an innovative idea, as I sit on this journey to run for the county clerk, I asked myself, how can I better serve the people of Dutchess County and prevent them from going to neighboring counties to receive services? And so maybe we should look into Zoom, phone calls where people can make those. Maybe we should just have an appointment, because all of us presented in this room right now, when you go to the doctor, you make an appointment and you hold them to the appointment time. 15 minutes after that, you ask them, am I going to be seen yet? That's not happening. That is not the fault of the people who currently work in the DMV. That is the fault of lack of leadership, vision, and foreseeing the problem that my opponent said existed for 2 years. Thank you.
And this is going to be related to that, what you just spoke about. And are there any plans to extend service hours for working people to have access to services?
Well, back when, let's see, I can't remember the year, but I'm going to say that we did have evening hours in Wappingers, and we did have morning hours in another DMV. And so those services were cut when my opponent took office. There was mention, while my opponent was on the campaign trail, that those hours would be reinstated. And so to date, they have not. The barriers with that is that we have a union. But again, once you create a partnership and you show to the unions and the people of Dutchess what is needed, I believe that gradually we can come up to make a conscious decision to ensure that we can create the space gradually to serve the people here in Dutchess. When you look at our neighboring counties, they have evenings, they have early mornings, and so we're behind, and we have to catch up. And so I guess change will start with me.
So the question is, how much money do you really want to have the taxpayers of Dutchess County subsidize New York State DMV services? Adequate recompense would allow us to expand those hours. The hours were cut in 2007 by the county legislature and the then county executive due to the extreme budget crisis, which I'm sure the county executive will share with you in a moment. And technology has changed since then. We have now the ability on our phone to do 30-something plus transactions. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So it's always a balance between what the taxpayer can afford and what the customer needs.
Yeah. Will you continue to post historic records on the computer, and then they put preservation in parentheses?
Absolutely. For 7 years, we've received states from the New York State Education Department to digitize our ancient court records beginning in 1720. Will Tatum, our county historian, is here has done a great job writing those grants, not just for us, but for other organizations, such as Dutchess Community College. But yes, we will continue to do that. It's very important that the traffic to that site doubles virtually every year. We're up to 24,000 hits in the past year, and it's actually one of the projects I'm most proud of that we've accomplished.
As it relates to recording our current documents, we really are behind the time again. So Dutchess County started in 2017, and again, our neighboring counties have been doing it since 2012. So you ask yourself the question, what are we doing? We also have documents that many of you may not know that sit in a building that is not climate controlled. And so those documents are vital to the history and to the people of Dutchess County. So what we needed to do is we needed to be proactive when the other counties were being proactive, and we needed to start taking our records and digitizing those. And so we didn't do that. So my opinion as someone who's been looking at this since I started this race is that someone has fallen asleep behind the wheel. And we cannot depend on the people to actually get the job done. You need a leader, someone in place that has vision, someone who's innovative, someone who sees that before the situation gets to you, that you deal with it. So I work with adults with intellectual disabilities. I have to show up to work every day. Whether or not those people recognize that they need me, I'm there for them. I care for them. Dollars have to make sense. And so where I come from, Medicaid dollars never make sense when it comes to care, but I always provide quality care. Dutchess constituents, Dutchess people deserve better.
And your next question will be, how can you be more supportive of youth?
I love the youth. So I have a youth group called Youth Equipped for Success. It serves young people from the ages of 9 to 22. People ask me why the age of 9 to 22. I feel that you can build better. A 22-year-old will learn more from a person who is 9-year-old, and a 9-year-old will learn something from a 22-year-old. How do I combine that with what happens here in Dutchess County? Well, they currently have some type of collaborative for people with disabilities to come in and scan the documents. I think that we need to start bridging the gap with our young people and having a space for them to support us so they learn more about county government and how it operates and get more involved. So when it comes to supporting the youth, I get them involved in I have a food pantry that I operate every Saturday. While I'm on a campaign trail, my husband actually oversees that program. And so again, we get the National Honor Society to get involved there. We pull those students. Any student that shows interest in human services or just learning and developing, I get the youth involved. Thank you.
Well, the best thing the county clerk's office can do for the youth is give a 16-year-old a permit. Because it certainly makes them very pleased, and we get ID cards for younger than that. It's a little kind of off-the-wall question, I think, for the county clerk's office. We have in the past used high school interns, college interns in processing our ancient documents, and we appreciate all the help they've done. Let me just say, in terms of imaging documents, we've been imaging documents since I got there. And in fact, in my first year in 2007, we imaged all the grantor-grantee indexes back to 1951, 3 years of deeds and mortgages. We then subsequently took our deeds back to 1981. So the idea that this just began in 2017 just isn't accurate.
Don't get comfortable.
It's like a jackrabbit up here.
This is directed to you, but I think Ken, you may have something to say too. Can you explain why the DMV loses money?
Because we are paid retention. We get 12.7% of every transaction. When we do a real ID transaction and scan those documents, it takes approximately 25 minutes to process that transaction. We get $80 for that. That's $10. You cannot pay a county employee $10 for half an hour worth of work. And that goes right down the line. The other thing that's happened over the last probably 7 or 8 years is New York State actively skims the high profit, high volume transactions, such as registration renewals. You used to get letters in the mail asking you to renew by mail. Now you get an email and you go online and it's easy and it's great. But that's a transaction that we actually do make money on, but we do fewer and fewer of those because New York State skims it off.
So why is the DMV losing money? I'll tell you. The people in northern part of Dutchess County don't receive their services here. They go into Kingston, they go other places because the wait time is too long. If you go up to Millbrook, there's 3 days of service there for those, and then there's 2 days for polling. So those people decide to go elsewhere. And so unfortunately, the DMV has been losing money since 2012. And because of that, when you look at the 2019 budget, we are at a $500,000 loss right now. You won't really see that because the legal department makes up for the surplus. So therefore, when you're looking as a layperson at the budget, you have to really dig deep and look into all three divisions. So right now, the records department is doing pretty good. There's no issues there. They're digitizing. They should have started that a long time ago, but kudos that we're on the journey there. And then you have the legal department that has the surplus. And so therefore, they continue to make money, so it supports the DMV. The way to get the DMV to make money is to get the people back into the DMV. You have to think ahead of the game. We didn't just get here yesterday. We are here now, and we need change. And so change starts with implementing an appointment system, not because you have an opponent, but because you know that the people here need it. Thank you.
The next question is actually about the DMV staff, and what plans do you have to speed up the process to get DMV staff done? I'm not sure quite what that addresses.
Well, again, the system that is in place right now does not afford the employees of the DMV to work in a fashion that would get through the surplus of people that show up there. If everyone thinks I should go early in the morning and 25 of us show up, right? There's no mechanism to streamline those people from showing up. An appointment system will decrease and resolve that. Continuity of services across all of the DMVs will also support that. I deal with a neighboring DMV from where I live at. I reside in Fishkill for the past 12 years with my husband and 3 children. And so at that particular DMV, someone comes out and asks if anyone is turning in plates. And those people come up and they turn in their plates and they leave. That is 4 to 5 people that get to leave the DMV. So during the course of my 12 years there and my 3 children who have gone in to receive their licensures or permits or whatever have you, I have seen that consistently. As I traveled across Dutchess County, I will tell you that the other DMVs have never even heard of that. So continuity of services, if it works in one place, you should implement it as a leader in others. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. In terms of plate surrenders, quite frankly, if you come to Wappingers or Poughkeepsie, there's a dedicated ticket for that, and you're generally in and out in less than 10 minutes. So to say that Beacon is the only one that does that is just absurd. Secondly, in terms of people coming from other counties or going to other counties because of convenience, 45% of our customer base in Beacon comes from Orange County. They drive past the Newburgh DMV and they come over to Orange County because of the superior service we offer. The same thing in Ulster. I know Northern Dutchess people go to Ulster. Ulster County people come to Poughkeepsie. They go to the mobile van, they can't complete their transaction, they come to Poughkeepsie. And bringing more people into the DMV is not going to solve your profitability problem. Quite frankly, if we bring more people in from the other counties, if we bring them from Ulster County, an Ulster County license is $64.50. It's less than a Dutchess County license because they don't live in the MTA region. So actually on those transactions, we even incur more of a cost.
I'm going to throw in a question here since you're first. Could you just mention some other services, because I know you all care about the DMV, we all do, but mention some things that people might not know that you do, and then Kenya can respond to that.
Beyond DMV?
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. So we are a passport acceptance agency for the federal government. One of the top-ranked, if not the top-ranked agency in the region. We are the chief notary of the county, so we provide for all the renewals of notaries in Dutchess County. We do naturalization ceremonies 6 times a year, which are wonderful ceremonies. We actually do our June ceremony right down the hallway. This facility has been a wonderful host, and certainly some of the best days of the clerk's life. Everybody kind of fights over who gets to go to naturalization ceremonies. We do alive and well certificates, which some people who are on foreign pensions need for their parents who are getting a pension from Italy. Once a year they have to certify that they're alive and well. And we don't just do that in the office. I've gone out to nursing homes and produced those letters and interacted with people in that capacity. We do peddlers. We have the Return the Favor program where we partner with Veteran Services. They sign up, they get registered with Dutchess County, and we've enlisted 250 businesses that will give the veteran a discount for being part of that program. So it's a wide range. It's pretty much everything that nobody else knew what to do with.
So it's not just DMV.
Not just
Okay.
I'm in agreement with what Brad said in terms of the services. As it relates to Return the Favor, Dutchess County wasn't the first to create it. We got it from Ulster County. They started it in 2010, and then we implemented it in 2011. My challenge with the Return the Favor program is that it is offered right now only at the Poughkeepsie DMV. So once again, you are leaving out the others in part of the counties. And so therefore, if we're going to do anything for our veterans, and my brother served 30 years in the Army, although he doesn't live in Dutchess County, there are many veterans I encounter throughout my week as I travel throughout Dutchess County. We should make it accessible to all veterans. Other counties have it even at their town clerk office. So therefore, Dutchess County, once again, although we have implemented a system, we've done nothing with it since we got it. Thank you.
And we have closing statements to come up, and I want to be sure to allow time for that. And I think I'm going to ask one more question. Will that work?
Oh, Jen.
Yeah, Jen.
Yeah, one more question.
And you can do whatever you like with this. It gives you lots of leeway. What role should history play in the operation of the county's clerk's office? And that's, yeah, it's Ken's. What role should history? What role does history play?
What role does history play? So I'm going to say that we should continue to digitize our records and preserve history. We should expand on whatever we're doing now to maintain the records. I think that that's important. I think that we're creating history today. We're learning that what existed has worked then, but it doesn't work now. So I think that what history does is it teaches us a lesson. It teaches us what we should do, and then it teaches us what we should do better. And so I'm striving for a better Dutchess County with a better county clerk's office. And I just want to say that the employees at the Dutchess County Clerk's office or at the DMV, essentially they do a great job. I have not ever encountered anyone there that has done less than professional with me, and I have a lot of friends who visit there, and they too have had wonderful experiences. So this is not about the employees at all. This is about the leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. We found something we can agree on. First of all, let me talk a little bit about the history of the Favor program. I agree we were not the first. Rockland County started it years ago. We implemented it. It is not just available at the county clerk's office in DMV. We cannot do it at other DMVs because DMV employees cannot issue ID cards other than New York State identification or licenses. We have, however, partnered with Veterans Affairs to offer passport fairs in Pine Plains, in Beacon, in Pauling, in Northeast, in Rhinebeck, throughout this county, in conjunction with the American Legions and the veterans. History is a passion of mine. When Mark Molinaro became county executive, one of our first joint initiatives was to reinstate the full-time county historian. And because of that, we've been able to do tremendous programming throughout Dutchess County. My mother was a town historian. I grew up in an historic building. I'm steeped in the history of Dutchess County, and it would be a dishonor not to pursue that.
All right. And now you get to make your closing statement.
This is almost as much exercise as door to door. I'm grateful for the honor of serving as your county clerk. The office has been around for 304 years, speaking of history, and I'm ever mindful of the trust you have placed in me. We do good work, but don't take my word for it. Listen to my 61 fellow clerks, Democrat and Republican, in the New York State Association of County Clerks. They have honored me with the office by electing me as their president in 2016. We've also been honored with 4 annual achievement awards for our work, the Clerk of the Year Award, and the Lifetime Achievement Award for the clerk with 10 years or more service. In 2 weeks, I'll travel to Albany to receive the William H. Kelly Annual Archives Award for Excellence, given to one person in New York State for visionary leadership. And just today, we received the result of our annual audit for the U.S. Passport Services, noting that we are an exceptional facility with knowledgeable agents. But I don't do this alone. All of this is because of the 66 people that I work with every day in DMV, the legal division, records management, and the Department of History. Sandy Strid, Anne Marie Dignan, and Catherine Derlin provide excellent service in leading their respective departments. Thank you for the opportunity to share our success and vision with you tonight. I ask for your vote on November 5th, or earlier if you so choose.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I want to let each and every person represented here today know that I'm qualified to do the job, that I am equipped, I'm dedicated, and I'm ready. When we receive awards, we must ask ourselves who's giving it to us. If we ask ourselves the question, if we would receive the Clerk of the Year award because we're waiting 3.5 hours on the line, I'll tell you that the people of Dutchess County would not agree. So although our peers give us what we need, the people vote us in. And so all of you and all of Dutchess matters to me. I will tell you that I will bring to the clerk's office the opportunity, the chance to create appointment spaces, to take technology and allow us to zoom in to combat the issues that we're going to face with Real ID. It is challenging when people take the time out of their day, some people working 2 jobs, to go into the office of the DMV, to receive services, to leave without what they plan to get. And that is because we are not being proactive. With Zoom, we can look at you while you're home and we can verify if your information is accurate enough. That's called being proactive. We can also run town halls through Dutchess County and open up some of these town buildings or school buildings and meet people where they're at. We can also create mobile units that can go out to different parts of Dutchess County to serve the people where they're at. Some of us have access to internet and all these other electronic accessible things. But there are parts of this county that are doing without. I am telling you that I'm committed to changing what the DMV and the clerk's office looks like. I am telling you that I'm committed to sharing with you what the budget really is for the DMV and showing you that we together can bring it back to a place where there's revenue coming into Dutchess County and not leaving, affording the people here the opportunity to have more. I thank you for your time. On November 5th, please, don't be challenged. Vote Kenya Gadsden for Dutchess County Clerk. Thank you.
One question I did ask because it came up anyway about appointments with the clerk's office. So if that may be something that happens already, I don't know.
Well, Kenya says she's going to do it. We're actually going to do it next month.
All right, so we'll now switch to...
Kenya said she's going to do it, but once again, people, when you are elected official, you have to be working every day, right? And so what happens when there's re-election is that the people who you've been working for validate the work that you've been doing, and so they show up and they show out for you again. There is no need to wait for Kenya Gadsden to get on a campaign trail to create an appointment system for each and every one of you represented here and those that are not present. This is something that should have been done a long time ago, because if you look at your neighboring counties, they're already there. Thank you.
Mr. Grady is going first. William Grady and Richard Burby will go second with the opening statements, and then we'll get into the questions. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you, League of Women Voters, for inviting me here this evening. It's an honor to appear before your group. For those of you who don't know that much about me, I am a lifelong resident of Dutchess County, being born and raised in Beacon. I graduated from their public schools, received a BA degree from Norwich University and a Juris Doctor degree from New York Law School. I proudly served 2 years in the military service, including 1 year in Vietnam. I attained the rank of captain and was later awarded the Bronze Star Medal. I started in the DA's office under then DA Al Rosenblatt as one of 7 part-time ADAs and was later promoted to become the first full-time assistant since my election as DA in 1984. I have overseen necessary growth in the office, and today there are 30 assistants, 19 of whom are women, including my chief assistant and bureau chief. The leadership in my office is experienced, with all 6 ADAs having more than 20 years of experience each. In the last year alone, we handled over 10,000 cases. I've dedicated my entire career to prosecution, with my goal of keeping the community safe, addressing victims' needs, and taking a proactive approach in addressing the issues surrounding drug-dependent offenders, especially those who are incarcerated, partnering to create a jail-based diversion program called Restart. I created Major Crimes Bureau to pursue violent criminals and a Special Victims Bureau to address domestic violence, sexual assault, child sex abuse, and elder abuse. I also created a Narcotics Bureau to pursue those who prey on our community by selling opioids and other narcotic drugs, and a DWI Bureau to pursue those who jeopardize our public highways by driving while intoxicated. I look forward to continuing this progressive approach to criminal justice issues. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Richard Burby. I, too, am a lifelong resident of Dutchess County. I grew up in East Fishkill, graduated from John Jay High School in 1989, and then I joined the Marine Corps like my father before me. I served 4 years in the Marine Corps Infantry, and then I was honorably discharged, and I returned to serve Dutchess County. When I got back to Dutchess County, I went to Dutchess Community College, and then I eventually transferred to Buffalo State College, where I received my undergrad degree in philosophy. After I graduated from Buffalo State College, I got married to my wife, who's in the back row there, and I'm embarrassing her a little bit. And we've been married for, I think it's 22 years now. After I graduated from, I went to Pace Law in White Plains and received my Juris Doctorate. And my last year at Pace Law, I was an intern for the Dutchess County District Attorney's Office. And then after I graduated from law school, I had the privilege of being hired as an assistant district attorney here in Dutchess County by Mr. Grady. Mr. Grady then promoted me to a senior assistant district attorney, where I prosecuted cases of domestic violence. I left that office in 2004, and I've been a private attorney ever since. I handle predominantly criminal cases here. So it is this background of defending the Constitution, first as a Marine, then as an assistant district attorney, and then as a private attorney helping families, that make me uniquely qualified to be the district attorney here in Dutchess County. I have the ability and I have the experience to enforce the law fairly and justly, and that is my promise to you. Thank you.
These candidates have been great to work with, so I'm expecting no problems, and I appreciate it. The first question, and you get to start. Yes, Rich. What do you think will be your most challenging issue in the future?
As a district attorney?
No, we don't want to hear about your marriage.
Okay. So I think one of the huge challenges right now in district attorney is the opioid crisis. Dutchess County, every other county in the state of New York has seen a decrease in their opioid deaths except for 2 counties, and one of those counties is right here in Dutchess County. And I think part of the problem is because of the prosecutorial policies toward people who have drug possession. Currently, people get incarcerated on possession, nonviolent drug possession, and what I think is that cases of drug addiction should be diverted as early as possible in the judicial system. So as soon, at arraignment, offer somebody help, offer somebody diversion to a rehab, because I believe that if you work on somebody's addiction, you're going to be working on their criminal problem too. So I think that's going to be one of the main problems here. Thank you.
I agree with Mr. Burby that the opioid crisis is definitely a challenge that we have to confront. We've been doing that for quite some time now. Currently, I participated in and partnered with other agencies. We developed an in-house rehabilitation program for drug-dependent offenders who are actually incarcerated. In other words, people who were screened by probation and deemed not qualified to return to court and therefore kept in jail. So we started this program with the incentive being that if they keep at it and are graduated from the program, their sentence is cut short. And this program has been working very well. However, unfortunately, under the new drug law that will be coming into effect next year, all these very same offenders will be released at the moment of arrest, because most of them are misdemeanor offenders, and there will be no bail. And therefore, the challenge is, what do we do with these offenders who we've been treating in jail, who will now be working around unsupervised and unmonitored? Again, I partnered with the Departmental Hygiene, the Probation Department, Lexington House, and other community service organizations to create a pre-arraignment diversion program, which will take effect immediately upon the arrest of the offender. We'll be in contact with support services, the Stabilization Center, Veterans Affairs people, and we will implement a program to get these offenders immediately involved, because the incentive of jail will no longer be on the table. But with everyone working together for this united effort, we have every reason to believe that we can be successful, and we are implementing that program as we speak. Thank you.
No, we're not going to clap on the short ones, on the individual ones. But I'm going to stick with that issue, though, because somebody raised the question, and you can fill in any gaps you left. What do you believe is the role of the DA in dealing with the opioid problem here in Dutchess County? And where does the legal system fall short in providing for those who have succumbed to addiction?
Well, obviously, this is a very complex question. The answer is not an easy one. The challenge is that there is no mechanism under the newly proposed law that will come into effect for a court to adequately address the drug-dependent needs of the offender, because the offender will be released without bail, without supervision. That is a major challenge, and we're working toward that right now. Right now, under the existing law, we have met that challenge by giving in-house jail diversion treatment programming, and it's been working very well. So the system is responding. It's a very difficult challenge. There were 93 deaths in Dutchess County in 2018 alone, certainly underscoring the need for much attention to the opioid addiction problem in the county. We're a member and active participant of the opioid crisis committee that meets regularly to discuss these issues and implement changes in the system, and we will continue to do so. Thank you.
No, I put it away. Yeah, it had a few parts. What do you believe is the role of the DA in dealing with the opioid epidemic in Dutchess County, and where does the legal system fall short in providing for those who have succumbed to addiction?
Well, first, I don't believe that jail is rehab. It's certainly not. So I think that the opioid addiction is a health crisis. It's not a criminal crisis, and we need to stop treating it like a criminal crisis. I think that the district attorney should realize that. I do applaud Bill's efforts in partnering with people who treat this as a health crisis as opposed to a criminal crisis. But the first thing is to, everybody who needs it should have it. I think that every single person who needs rehab should have rehab. I don't care if it's 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, as often as it's needed. But the main thing is to divert them out of the jail and into rehab, because incarcerating somebody who has an addiction it's not something that the district attorney ought to do. That's what the district attorney should stop doing. Thank you.
You get the next one. How can you cut down on the delays which fill the jail?
Well, one of the ways we can cut down on the delays that fill the jail is currently, when there's an arraignment after hours, there's somebody who's been arrested and brought in front of a court. There's a judge. There's the public defender. And the only person that is absent at that very critical moment of the arraignment is the district attorney. There's no district attorney there. They'll phone in a bail recommendation and send them to jail and figure out what to do with them later. What should happen is the district attorney should be at every stage of every proceeding, including the arraignment. I think that if you can assess somebody's needs at the arraignment, you can speed up the process of getting them into rehab as opposed to putting them into the Dutchess County Jail. Thank you.
Well, I agree with Rich on that issue. We are certainly ready, willing, and able to become involved in centralized arraignment. But given the current level of my staffing, it would take probably 3 or 4 assistant DAs to be able to effectively man a centralized arraignment court. But if that happens, we're certainly willing to get involved in it. And just so you know, the Criminal Justice Council is investigating as we speak the legitimacy of having a centralized arraignment court. And we're waiting for results from that investigation now. But in addition to that, we make every effort to move the cases along and process them more effectively and efficiently. And one of those methods is by giving discovery up front immediately to the defense attorneys so that they know right away what the type of case is against their client and the evidence that we have available. And if this is done, the offer is made to resolve the case by way of a plea. And I can tell you that over 70% of the time in county court, those handling the felony cases plead guilty by way of what we call a superior court information, which means defendants have pleaded guilty after knowing all the evidence available against them, and their attorneys encourage the plea and the case is resolved. That results in expeditious handling of cases, and that's a real-life example, and those statistics, of course, are accurate. Another thing that we do is we have what's called a case processing review committee. We're in the public defender, the district attorney, the probation department, and the jail is involved. And we discuss on a monthly basis critical issues that may impede effective case processing. And we have done so, and we have addressed those issues. I've been given additional assistant DAs by our county executive to help expedite the processing of cases in the city of Poughkeepsie and the town of Poughkeepsie.
Time on that.
Which are, 1 minute?
She has a, no, she,
Which are I can't see the card,
Yeah,
which are our most important courts for producing offenders, and we have had dramatic success in that regard in reducing the jail population. Thank you.
sorry, I interrupted your phone. Was that, that's the
This is
system?
stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. Run on a little bit if you want.
It is right. No, that's okay. That's okay.
All right, and this will be your question. Term limits for the DA, how long is too long for one person to hold the office of DA? Personal opinion.
I guess I'm a living, talking example of the type of individual that will stand the test of time, I guess. I think that it all depends on, first of all, how enthusiastic you are, how vested you are in this system, and how aggressive you are in implementing the responsibilities of your job. I can tell you unequivocally on all of those fronts, I am 100% behind being aggressive. I feel like I have the same energy that I had 36 years ago when I first started. But more importantly, as everyone else knows here, I'm sure, you're only as good as the staff that works for you. And fortunately, as I mentioned before, I have a senior staff who each one has over 20 years of experience in the system. They provide me with the necessary tools that I need to effectively implement and handle the prosecution of 10,000 cases a year. So it's not only me, but it's my staff as well. So I look forward to the challenge. That was a legitimate question. I think I'm up to that challenge, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
I believe that all elected officials, all positions should have term limits. I think when power is concentrated in one person for 36 years, that it can become a problem. I think that, I know that Dutchess County has recently passed term limits. I know it doesn't apply to the district attorney, but the county that we are in has seen that term limits are important. And the reason that they're important is because you don't want that same person to have that much power. Because then, when having that much power, it becomes that you can force your worldview on the constituents of Dutchess County because you've had that power that long. So I'm certainly in favor of term limits. And I would tell you here today, if elected district attorney, I would serve no more than 12 years, if I could, of course, because I do believe in term limits. Thank you.
The next question is, do you support a misdemeanor court that can include community service?
We do have misdemeanor courts. They're called justice courts. They handle misdemeanors and lower offenses, and they are already handling them. And so yes, I do agree that we should have them. We do have them, and I think community service is an important part of any kind of disposition for any accused, because it gets them out in the community and gets them to see that helping the community is more important, and being a productive member of the community is more important. So the answer is yes.
So they're just part of the regular system?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
I believe Rich and I are in full agreement on this issue. Our misdemeanor courts today fully involve themselves with alternative sentences, one of them being community service. And we've had so many good luck stories as a result of offenders who commit petty crime, who don't deserve to go to jail. Probation may not be appropriate, but doing 25 or 50 hours of community service is very beneficial to them, because not only does it provide the local municipality with needed help, but also it teaches them a respect for authority. And we've had cases where individuals who have completed that community service have in fact gone back and started to work for the very people who they were assigned to work for as a part of their community service sentence. And just so you know, we usually couple community service with an eventual dismissal, so that we recognize that an offender, under certain circumstances, should not have a criminal conviction that may inhibit him from being a successful citizen later in life. So we give him an opportunity to pay his debt to society by performing this community service, and at the end of that time, dismissing the case. So it's a win-win for the offender as well as the community as well, because hopefully the lesson will have been learned by this offender. Thank you.
I got you both on that, yeah. There were a number of questions on bail, and I'm going to read the longest one because it covers the most territory, but there's obviously a lot of interest in the eliminating bail. What are your thoughts on the new law eliminating bail for most cases? Do you think it will help or hurt your ability to enforce the law? What are some alternatives to bail that you could utilize?
The new bail law, that we've mentioned it before, which will come into effect on January 1, presents major issues for the criminal justice system, major challenges. Whereas now, the courts on all the misdemeanor cases have discretion to set bail on certain cases depending upon the prior history of the defendant, whether he's got ties to the community, the type of crime charged, the length of sentence, etc. After the first of the year, there will be no bail set on any misdemeanor, regardless of the case. Even domestic violence cases will not be able to have bail set on them. It's a very serious challenge, and especially having to do with those drug-dependent offenders who would have ordinarily been in jail because the judge used that in their discretion to send them to jail, and they would be participating in our in-house drug program. These offenders will be out on the street. That creates two major issues for me as a district attorney. One, of course, is public safety for the obvious reasons. But just as importantly, we have an offender who's drug dependent, who's in jail or was arrested because they were doing something to try to get money to support their habit. What's going to happen if they continue that process without supervision or control? They're not only going to try to support their habit, they're going to get high, and given the statistics that exist now in Dutchess County, they could very well die from an overdose. So that we have to do something on both ends to protect the public as well as protecting the offender who is drug dependent. And that is the major challenge that we are facing now, and that is what I mentioned previously with regard to the pre-arraignment diversion program that we're working on now and will implement after January 1st. And all law enforcement will be involved in that, as well as the support service, and also the Veterans Affairs Administration in the county. Thank you.
So bail reform is coming, whether people want it or not. So the first thing that the district attorney should do is get ready for it. I believe that a person who has a constitutional attachment of the presumption of innocence, who is sitting in jail without a conviction and can't get out of jail because they are in poverty, is despicable. So for the most part, I am in agreement with this bail reform. If you haven't been convicted, you shouldn't be incarcerated. And let's be clear about bail and how it works. It is within the discretion of the court, but there's not a court in Dutchess County that would set bail unless the district attorney asked for it. So That's how it works. So bail reform's coming, and I do believe that, or I would have liked to have seen the legislature include DASNY, the District Attorneys Association of New York, in actually writing the law, because there are some deficiencies. I think that there is a dangerousness standard that should have been considered, but for the most part, I agree with the bail reforms. It's coming. We need to get ready for it and stop complaining about it.
This had a long prelude, but I'm just going to get down to the bottom line. Do you support the emerging commission to oversee the DA? If not, why?
I welcome anybody to oversee the district attorney's office. This is an office, or it's a position that is the most powerful, the least accountable, and the least transparent player in the entire criminal justice system. So, oversight from Albany about that power and the use of that power, I think, is completely appropriate. And as district attorney, I would certainly welcome it. Thank you.
I, as a district attorney, have no problem with the concept. The difficulty is in the very people who would be on the commissions overseeing the district attorney could very well themselves be investigated. We have seen political corruption in this state like never before, and we're asking the same politicians who are involved in this process to now oversee the very people who end up prosecuting them. So I think that if we have a very fair and equitable way that this can be done, I have no problem with that. But just so you know, the New York State DA's Association does currently have a review panel in existence right now that reviews conduct, impermissible conduct as alleged by district attorneys, and it just happened upstate several months ago when they participated and the DA was removed from office. So that does happen right now. But as far as the future goes, I have no problem with the concept. It's the implementation of the concept and who would be a part of that review process that would concern me the most. They would have to be fair, above reproach, ethical, and responsible. Thank you.
Interesting. I'm going to do one more. Start with the closing. Okay. All right. So you're second.
Yes.
You're first. Okay.
I'll go first.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, first, thank you very much for hosting us this evening. This has been my first event like this. I've never run for office before in my life, and this has been a very wonderful experience. And the experience that is the thing that's wonderful about it is just meeting all these new people who are interested in helping other people, and it's really renewed my belief in humanity. So thank you all for that. So I just want to leave you with one case that happened here in the district attorney's office and why there's a need for a change. Dewey Bozella was twice prosecuted for murder here in Dutchess County. The first time the conviction was overturned because people of color were being thrown off the jury. The second conviction was overturned because the district attorney had evidence that tended to show that this person did not commit the crime. So this man spent 26 years in prison. The case was overturned for failure to turn over what we call Brady material. Brady is a Supreme Court case in 1963 that says that any exculpatory material must be turned over to the defendant so they can consider it, and that was not done. So instead of then turning over the evidence and having a third trial because the district attorney believed that he was a murderer, the case was dismissed. And it cost the taxpayers here in Dutchess County over $8 million. So come November 5th, vote for integrity, vote for Rich Burby. Thank you.
The representations made by Mr. Burby with regard to the Bozella case are distorted and basically untrue. With the exception of the final payout of the money. This case involved the unfortunate murder of a 90-year-old woman in the city of Poughkeepsie back in 1977. That offender was indicted, charged, convicted, and sentenced before I became DA in 1984. 6 years later, That individual appealed, and it was reversed because of the failure to take adequate notes with regard to jury selection. After that, some 30 years went by, and the defense appealed again. And this is critical. They didn't allege that he was innocent. They didn't allege material uncovered exonerated him. They alleged that the information recovered would have been favorable to them to develop their investigation. The court agreed with them because of the allegation and set aside the conviction, not because the defendant was innocent, not because he was exonerated, because information that could have been helpful was not turned over. The recourse to have another trial. The problem is, after 30 years, we have witnesses who have died, who are missing. One witness who died would have corroborated the confession that the defendant gave. In addition to that, evidence was lost or misplaced. So there was an inability on our part to be able to go forward with the prosecution. We had to dismiss the case, and naturally a civil suit followed. But I might add that is the first and only time a case like that has involved my office in the prosecution of over 300,000 cases that my office has prosecuted under my control. And furthermore, I'd like to say that I have instituted a case enhancement unit in the office to search for discoverable
Mr.
material
Grady.
and make them available to the defense, because under the law, on the case that Rich cited, we have to do that. So I would like to just say that that's the accurate recitation on that particular case.
Thank you. Thank you to both candidates, Bill Grady and Rich Berger. That we had a gubernatorial debate at the state level that we live streamed it, and we reached thousands of people we wouldn't have reached otherwise. So it's a great concept, but you really have to set it up so it's fair for both sides and so on. So maybe we'll do that next time. All right, we are ready, and oh gee, I've forgotten already. Mark, you're two. Right? You are two. They've been debating since this morning, so they're a little weary. All right, we have the two county executive candidates, and questions are coming up here. They can continue to come up. I don't think they need much introduction at this point, but in case you don't know, that's Mark Molinaro at that end and Joe Ruggiero over here. And Joe is going to do the opening statement first.
Ready? Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. It's great to be here on the estate of Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt's home. It's very inspiring, and the two previous exchanges were exciting as well. You know, this is an exciting time for Dutchess County. This coming November in Dutchess, we have an opportunity to change course. And tonight we have a moment to ask ourselves, what is next for Dutchess County? What are we going to do as we enter this new decade? The 20s, if you will, not the 1920s, but the 2020s. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Joseph Ruggiero. I'm a proud father and husband. I started my career in the telecom industry as an electrical engineer. I served 4 terms as Wappinger councilman, 3 terms as Wappinger supervisor. I had the honor of serving 2 years as assistant controller to our great state controller, Tom DiNapoli. And for the last 9 years, I was the executive director for the New York State Bridge Authority. Now this year, I'm the Democratic candidate for Dutchess County Executive. I'm proud to be out there representing our side. Right now, the air we breathe in Dutchess County is putting our children's health at risk. And it's not because we're close to the city, as some might claim. It is because the trash incinerator that we have here in Dutchess County is one of the largest polluters in the nation. We have a PFOA crisis developing in our county in our groundwater system. Right now, we're paying more in county sales tax than our neighboring counties. We are paying a higher clothing tax than New York City, while at the same time we are shortchanging our towns and cities on the sales tax agreement they have agreed for many years. We are about to borrow and spend nearly $192 million to build a jail. And as you heard in the last debate, how that jail is being used is definitely at the center of some major public policy decisions that we need to take on. And we also have an IDA in Dutchess County, which is giving out large multi-million-dollar tax breaks to realtors who are building residential housing, which is what not the IDA is for. And I just got the polite stop card. Well, thank you, and I will continue my,
Go get more.
my speech in a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our rule has been that you get applause after your openings and closings, but not during the rest of it. They've been very well behaved.
You're better than my children. Usually they applaud when I come home. It's very nice of them. Dare, I assure you, with 4 children, spending a day debating is not wearing on me. I'm just happy to be among adults. Ladies and gentlemen, there'll be plenty of time for us to go back and forth on the details of our ideas, our service, and certainly to challenge one another. I began in public service 25 years ago. Every day of my adult life has been dedicated to making a difference in the life of my community. I had one of the greatest honors and greatest mentors, Eileen Hickey, who served in the State Assembly. I worked for her. She taught us the value of public service, and she encouraged us to serve everyone regardless of party. She and I didn't share party affiliation. I went to work as a village trustee and then ultimately mayor of the village of Tivoli, in a place where we don't run with party affiliation. And when the roof leaks, it leaks on Republicans and Democrats, and it's our job to fix the roof. Fast forward to the last 8 years as county executive. When I became county executive in 2012, I said that our time together would be defined by how we answer these 2 questions. Who are we as a people, and how do we hope to live? Over the last 8 years as county executive, I can tell you that I used the lessons I learned from Eileen, the lessons I learned from folks like Steve Saland, and the time I served in village government to make county government work for you, regardless of party. We are an open, honest, accessible county government. We respond to problems with real solutions, and we bring people together to mold consensus to confront the challenges that face us. Over these last 8 years, I think that we've answered those questions by being inclusive, by being responsible, and by saying to anyone, if you have an honest and earnest desire to serve our community, you have a place at the table. That has defined my entire life as a public servant. I believe it has defined our time together these last 8 years, and I promise you, if you give me the honor of serving 4 more years, I'll answer Joe's question. What's next for Dutchess? You ain't seen nothing yet. Thanks.
All right, the first question, how would you make our county inclusive of and welcoming to people of all backgrounds, abilities, and beliefs?
I think that we are. First, I'd offer you, when it comes to different backgrounds, Dutchess County reestablished, at my request, our Human Rights Commission, where we spend a great deal of time reaching out throughout our community to recognize that our differences make us great, and to also make perfectly clear that we don't tolerate nor accept the kind of intolerance, anger, and hate that seems to be paralyzing other layers of government, and sadly, our body politic. As a community, this county is defined nationally for our commitment to those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. As the father of a child with a disability myself, I can tell you the challenges are great. Among the highest unemployment rates, among the highest most difficult access to housing. Those living with intellectual and developmental disabilities have to confront the last almost acceptable prejudice in America. The quiet prejudice of low expectation, the assumption that certain people can't achieve certain things because of our perception of their ability. Dutchess County, through our Think Differently campaign, now has 100 communities across the state of New York, a half a dozen across America, committed to embracing this concept. And just today, the Anderson Center for Autism acknowledged Dutchess County as the first of its kind autism supportive county in the country, because we believe that we meet people where they are, not where we presume they ought to be, and that every life has value, and every person has dignity. And at the end of the day, we ought to be lifting all of us up, breaking down barriers, and building a more inclusive environment. That is what has defined us these last 8 years, and I promise you, it is what will propel us forward over these next 4.
I'm really happy to hear that the county executive supports inclusivity, and I am also telling you we need to build a county government that looks and represents the people of Dutchess County. I'm troubled that right now the county government is saddled with a federal lawsuit for its failure to have diverse hiring and promotion practices, which is a major shortcoming where we're not fulfilling that hope. You know, our Declaration of Independence said, you know, we're going to create pursuit of happiness and life, liberty, and our Constitution says that we're going to promote a more general, promote the general welfare to make a more perfect union. And when we have failed to do that in our communities. We need to recognize that and reset. And now that we're saddled with a federal lawsuit that questions our hiring practices and our promotion practices, we need to look within county government. That's one of the reasons I want to create a chief inspector officer and a chief ethics officer in county government to eliminate these issues that we're confronted with. We represent a county that is growing more diverse each year. The city of Poughkeepsie is one of our most diverse communities. The city of Beacon, even the village of Wappinger Falls, with our growing minority populations, African American and Hispanic. Now we need to bring them into the roles of county government and represent and make high-level appointments in county government that represent all of us in Dutchess County.
There are two related, I have a lot of questions up here, and I don't know how we're going to get through all this, so I'm going to try to put these two together, even though maybe that's not fair. With unemployment at record levels, some employers are having difficulty finding workers, especially skilled workers. As county executive, what can be done? I think I read record lows. I'm sorry, yeah, I knew it wasn't making sense. With unemployment at record lows, some employers are having trouble getting skilled workers. What can be done about that? But somebody else has asked a kind of related question. Outmigration and brain drain affect New York State more than many others. What is your plan to return young people to Dutchess County? So that's yours, Joe.
In 2 minutes, right?
2 minutes.
We're going to solve the world in 2 minutes.
We're going to do climate change in 2 minutes, too.
Oh, God. Look, young people who are leaving our county, we spend so much in educating our young people. We have some of the best high schools in Dutchess County. We have some of the best colleges. And we raise them well, and then we educate them, and then they take our talents and our well-meaning, hardworking young people, and they go out because they need jobs. We need to start creating jobs in this county again that's going to retain our youngest and our talent. That's how we're going to renew Dutchess County. We were becoming an aging county, and no disrespect for those who served us and are aging, but the reason is because we're not replenishing our youth. That is why I'm putting forward an idea that we build fiber optic network to every home and business in Dutchess County, to be the first county in the entire United States to be totally interconnected by fiber optics, ushering in a new era of entrepreneurship, putting all these folks to work, building out this network, opening up trade schools. Not everybody is suited for college, and not everybody wants to go to college, but we need to create opportunities. I want apprenticeship programs on all public works projects in Dutchess County government and work with all the localities at the town, city, and school levels to make sure that we have apprenticeship programs. I'm a graduate of Dutchess County BOCES, the technical school, and there's an opportunity to get that school open during the summer to do training after kids graduate high school so they learn those skills of carpentry, electrician, and cooking, and they just have such a wonderful facility there. We need to do more to capture the youth of our county and stop sending our talent outward. And retaining your jobs will come, and the good creation of jobs, when we start paying people higher wages, we'll be able to fill these positions.
First, I want to be clear, Dutchess County is not being sued by the federal government. I think that may have been a slip of the tongue. There is an individual who is upset that he wasn't hired and is suing the county. That is an individual litigation that I can't speak about, but it's not a federal lawsuit. And I really think that we need to be careful about suggesting that. I absolutely, listen, we have, over the last 4 or 5 years, we reoriented our entire economic development apparatus to focus on the creation of, and the support for the creation of both community and jobs that support young people, the gig economy. 23 consecutive months of job growth now in Dutchess County. We have led the state, lowest unemployment rate now in 17 years, and $5 billion worth of economic activity underway right now. Dutchess County has the second highest weekly payroll of any county in the region, and we are leading the state when it comes to job creation. Only Sullivan County is doing better than us, and it's because they have a casino they built. 2,000 jobs created in the last 12 months alone. But what we focused is investment in our city and village centers. Young people want both the cultural experience and the job opportunities, and that's the problem. While towns were subdividing and sprawling, we were losing people, and we have an old housing stock that no longer is the kind of place young people want to live. So working with our two cities, Beacon and Poughkeepsie, we've supported infill development, mixed-use development, we've supported development in and around our transportation hubs, and we use the PACE Land Use Law Center to support towns, villages, and cities to create the center cores that are necessary in order to support young people staying. Our greatest investment is that into Dutchess Community College, and our work with Dutchess, now historic investment, to create an apprenticeship program, a manufacturer and trade school at Dutchess South, which will be coming to Fishkill. Every public project does have apprenticeship language. In fact, that was the rule that I implemented, and we're using a project labor agreement to move forward with the next capital project. We've created the support among the building and trades community in order to create job opportunities. We get it. Believe me, we get it. And by the way, I'm all for high-speed internet access, but wireless is the 21st century. Wireless and the connectivity that's necessary is what we're going to have to grow in order to create those opportunities for young people to stay.
Okay, well, since I promised climate change, we might as well get to it. And by the way, they have 2 minutes. The other races had 1.5 minutes, so if it feels longer, it is a little bit. But
Feels longer
still, I
because we're
only have
listening
2
to us.
minutes on climate change. One person just asked about it in general, but I'll read this more specific question on the environment. I believe protecting and conserving our environment must be a bipartisan issue. What have you done and will you do to protect our environment? Is there anything unique in your approach?
I have been a conservationist since the day I entered public office. In fact, as a member of the New York State Assembly, I was always endorsed by the League of Conservation Voters. In fact, I was the only Republican member of the State Assembly to be endorsed by the Sierra Club. We said that we would fight the EPA for the cleanup of the Hudson River, and we're doing it. We're suing them because they gave up their responsibility. Beyond that, only 10 months ago, the county legislature adopted and we implemented our climate action task force. Within 10 months, Dutchess County has initiated a number of steps to drive down emissions, to address the impact on our environment, and Dutchess County is now only one of 9 counties in the state of New York to be recognized as a bronze level climate smart community, and that's not where we're ending. We're moving forward with a climate action institute to establish emission levels. We're working with the state of New York to implement their new legislation, which we'll have to comply with and obviously want to get ahead of. Dutchess County initiated Energized Dutchess and Solarized Dutchess, and in that case we were able to implement 3 municipal solar projects throughout Dutchess County and 108 individual solar projects throughout Dutchess to drive down our reliance on fossil fuels. Beyond that, Dutchess is absolutely focused on making sure that we are a leader in climate change and recognizing the need to invest in the preservation of open space and the protection of farmland, to focus development in and around city centers. One of our biggest challenges is congestion. Again, the suburban sprawl and the mauling of America created communities like Wappinger and East Fishkill and Fishkill who were reliant more on automobiles than people. So we're reorienting our entire development plan throughout Dutchess, working with municipalities to drive down the reliance on vehicles and create communities that, in fact, are more people-friendly, centers, if you will. As mayor of the Village of Tivoli, first in Dutchess County to implement the Greenway Compact, first in Dutchess County to lead the effort to fight for the Hudson River as a heritage area, a heritage river. This is what I believe in, and I believe Dutchess County supports.
Thank you. Just real quick, the federal lawsuit that has been filed, it is a 1983 action, which is a federal lawsuit, and it is a class action lawsuit. One employee did sue, but now it is a class action lawsuit against the county for its failing to hire and do the proper promoting. As far as wireless, well, I'll come back to that. Solar panels. As executive director of the Bridge Authority, we implemented a very good project where we were given the goal to reduce our carbon footprint by 50% in 30 years. We did it in 1 year. We changed out all the lighting on all the bridges in the Hudson Valley. We went to LED lighting, which reduced our energy consumption by some 24%. Then we built a solar array, a power purchase agreement on state property, which then turned around and reduced the amount of consumption of commercial power by another 20-something%. So within 1 year, we reduced our portfolio of using fossil fuels by some 50%. The biggest threat to our environment right now is the Dutchess County incinerator. It is burning trash on a daily basis, releasing some 16 pounds of mercury into our atmosphere. It releases more carbon monoxide than 1/3 of the cars in Dutchess County. That is the biggest environmental threat facing us in Dutchess County. And if we're going to do anything in the middle of this climate argument and discussion going on all around the globe, we here in Dutchess County have a piece of it that we can change immediately and make a quantum leap forward with our own county-owned incinerator. We need to close that come 2020.
All right, here's another small question for 2 minutes. Where do you stand on campaign finance reform in Dutchess County? Joe, that would be you.
I think we need campaign finance reform all throughout the United States of America. We see what's going on. Money in politics is just becoming awful. And when they equate money to free speech, those who have more money have more speech, and those who have no money have no speech. And that is a system we need to break, and break right away. You know, I have put forward a series of reforms in this campaign, reforms that really are over needed in Dutchess County. We're going to ban pay to play, where if you have donations to county officials, you will be banned from getting a county contract. Currently, my opponent has received over $360,000 in donations during his time as county executive, and those people have wound up getting $65 million in government contract. That is the type of pay to play that we must end immediately. We also want to put other reforms in place. A County Hatch Act that bans county employees from participating and running for public office while on the county payroll, just like at the federal government. We also want to ban contracts to family members of county officials. We need to reform our system. And when we get money out of politics and we take the steps necessary, we'll make people feel good about the process and once again give back democracy to where it belongs, with the people, not the people who can buy the system. It is a broken process from that Supreme Court decision that has set us on a trajectory that is eroding our democracy.
The state of New York regulates campaign finance, and for those of you who paid attention last year, I absolutely embrace every aspect of draining the swamp that is Albany. The problem is that you can't make those changes at the county level. New York State preempts that. So what we believe in, and I believe in, is absolutely the state of New York should lower the contribution limits. There ought to be direct and absolute transparency, and yes, the state of New York should ban pay to play as a method. But Joe, as town supervisor, didn't seem to have this concern, as he made sure that those who contributed to his campaigns also got contracts. But I'm not going to make the attack he did. He followed the law as I do. Dutchess County, like the town of Wappinger, is subject to general municipal law. Every contract we enter into is a competitive bid process, and in this county, it's very transparent. It's scored by a panel of people who make recommendations. And when we decided 2 years ago to take a step to make the reforms that we needed, we actually focused on this. Dutchess County came together, Republicans and Democrats, to adopt the most comprehensive ethics law in the state of New York. It is stronger than Albany's, and it is more comprehensive than any county in New York State. Together, we established term limits to limit the time that individuals can serve in any one of these elected offices, and you probably know, in a unanimous vote, implemented independent reapportionment so that elected officials aren't picking their constituents, but rather constituents are making the selections. We absolutely hold ourselves to the highest standard, and by the way, there are counties all across the state of New York that are being sued because of these kind of corrupt actions. Dutchess County is methodical. We are responsible, and we are transparent when it comes to making bid awards and ensuring, by the way, that we absolutely root out any influence. And this county has been a leader in that, and I'm very proud of the work we've done in a bipartisan manner.
You people are doing very well with your 2 minutes on these big questions. This one is maybe a little easier. Niagara County recently filed a lawsuit opposing driver's licenses fees for undocumented, for illegal immigrants. Would you support the same lawsuit for Dutchess County?
We have not decided to take that action. Listen, I take an oath of office. That oath of office says that I am responsible for upholding the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of New York, and the laws of the United States and the State of New York. When the State of New York implements laws that I like or dislike, it is my job to implement them. In fact, I don't know if it was Niagara or Rensselaer, talked about implementing legal action and then just never did. Listen, the state every day comes up with some new mandate that we respond to, and effectively we will do that. I am concerned about fraud. I am concerned about making sure that people follow the rules. But at the end of the day, we do our job, and we do it irregardless of political party, ideology, length of residency, where you come from, who you believe in, or what you believe in, or who or how you love. Our job is to serve the people of Dutchess County.
It is the responsibility of anyone who takes an oath of office, as we heard Ms. Gadsden said earlier, that if you can't fulfill your oath of office by enforcing the laws that you are entrusted to do, then you should not be in that office. I'm glad to hear that the county is not moving forward with a frivolous lawsuit to challenge that. I'm sure the constitutionality of this will be found to be what the legislature and the governor did to be constitutional. They're the ones who get to set those parameters, and we need to make sure that the system works here in Dutchess County.
All right. Would you commit to opting into the Paid Family Leave Act for all county employees?
It would be something that we need to negotiate with each of the individual unions as part of it, but yeah, I would think that we should, as a good employer, to have paid family leave. You know, 6 years ago, I had the unfortunate situation to have to care for both of my parents at the same exact time. They were diagnosed with stage 4 cancer 5 months apart, and I found myself at one point having to care for both of them, both being in different hospitals 60 miles apart, and both having surgery and coming home at the same time. And I found myself having to take a FMLA to care for both of them for the better part of 5 weeks. I was fortunate to have accrued time in order to do that, but many folks don't. And these are the real life situations that people deal with every day. We go to work for our families. As much as we might like our jobs and are passionate about what we do, it's all to provide for our families. And anything we can do to be a better employer for our employees when they're dealing and confronting with those issues, whether it be a birth of a child or, in like my case, a situation where you're caring for loved ones who you're all they got, we need to open up into that. So I would support that.
I'm trying to sort all the tax questions here. Would you commit to opting into the Paid Family Leave Act for all, and underlining all county employees?
Well, the good news is Dutchess County was the first county in the state of New York to implement the Paid Family Leave Act. In fact, we advanced it before the state of New York even adopted its legislation, and we made it perfectly clear that we wanted to ensure all employees had access to that benefit. So please know that Dutchess County did it. We did it first, and we did it, by the way, without implementing the fee that the state of New York wished to charge its employees, because one, it didn't make much sense, and two, we believe that the benefit should be as of right. We didn't ask to negotiate it. We just gave it to them. We said, here, I went to the table and said to the CSEA, we're going to give this to you. I can tell you that most of the negotiating team didn't necessarily like that, but we did it because it's right. Now I want to address one other challenge that a lot of people have that we as a community and society need to confront, and that is the lack of accessible and affordable daycare. Listen, for those who go to work, we are challenged with quality and quantity when it comes to daycare. For those, in particularly more women than men, who can't access affordable daycare, they choose to stay out of the workforce. We are depriving those individuals from the ability to enter the workforce, and we're depriving employers from the ability to get good quality people to work. So Dutchess County, working with legislator Rebecca Edwards, is going to move forward with our commitment to day one, which is in the 2020 budget will be a $150,000 commitment to really increase the quality of daycare and to work with private employers to expand daycare opportunities. I know that there are plenty of women who make the decision, and some men who make the decision, that going to work, they won't generate enough revenue to overcome the cost of daycare, so they stay out. And for us, at the end of the day, every child should have the ability to be placed in a quality preschool or daycare setting so that we advance their strength, if you will, prepare them for kindergarten, and really give them the tools from birth to kindergarten, give them the tools to be successful as they grow up. That is the next step that we are going to advance, and we're doing it in a bipartisan manner because it makes sense, and it really will address a need that too many families and employers have.
All right, now I'm going to do my best with these tax questions. They overlap, and it's challenging. I think maybe if you could first, and it'll be your question,
Yes.
Mark, talk about the budget in general this year, and because people are saying it's gone up, it's, you know, just
So
describe.
this is a tutorial for 2 minutes?
I know, you've done whole hours on this. But if you could just say where we are with the budget.
And is Joe going to say where we are with the budget?
And then
That's
he's going
the
to comment
So
on
he's
it.
going to give his...
He's going to comment.
I just want to make sure I understood. And then there's
Yeah.
going to be another question?
No, and that's the other problem. When you ask the question, sometimes people have, you've been asking one question for Mark and another one for Joe, and I don't know how to do that fairly, so I'm sort of generalizing about these questions and letting you do your best.
You're doing a great job. I came into office 8 years ago staring at a $40 million budget gap, and we had seen a bond rating downgrade and assessed valuation decline, and we confronted it head on. We consolidated government, we shared services with municipalities, we made, by the way, a number of sacrifices, and we preserved core services. Over the 8 years, Dutchess County confronted that. We now have the highest bond rating of any county in the state of New York. We have been able to hold annual spending to 1.4% annual growth, unheard of in the state of New York. And at the same time, we've been able to provide now 5 consecutive years of property tax levy reductions. And we announced just yesterday that the 2020 budget will provide the largest property tax cut in 20 years. At the end of the day, we have used innovation and creativity to drive down cost and enhance the delivery of services. We did everything from, by the way, making the energy efficiency changes within county government, which drove down cost, to consolidating whole departments to maximize and leverage, if you will, the synergies between departments. We are a model. Dutchess County spends 21% below the state average per capita. We tax 25% below the state per capita in the state of New York, in counties, and we borrow 44%. Our debt load is 44% lower than like counties across America. We're responsible with your tax dollars, and you don't have to believe me. Standard & Poor's says, through that bond rating, highest in the state of New York, strong fiscal stewardship. The Office of the State Comptroller has acknowledged every year that Dutchess County has no fiscal stress. And I can tell you that there are colleagues across the state of New York who look to us on how to do it. Now, certainly, we've also been more transparent with our budget. You can find every detail online. And I say, respectful to my predecessor, more transparent than he was. We wanted to be sure that everybody knew and knows how and where your dollars are being spent. And to the point of tutorials, I have held over 150 town hall meetings in 8 years where we come to the public and answer the questions every single year. We've scheduled the next 4 for the budget release because I believe it's my responsibility to answer to you. And financially, we have.
Anything you want to say about the budget in general?
I applaud the documentation being put on the website as transparent, but the only thing that wasn't transparent was the answer there, because we still don't know how much of a tax cut that we are getting, that he announced yesterday. It's going to be the largest one in 20 years, but we don't know what that is. We don't know how much he's going to reduce the tax levy. You know, 12 years ago when I ran for county executive, 1 week before the election, in my last debate with my opponent, my then opponent announced a 16% tax cut. So if he's going to outdo that in the last 20 years, he's proposing a 16% tax cut, which would be interesting. You know, last year's budget was balanced by hitting the fund balance very hard. They hit some special funds that should be red flags to the rest of us. they tapped into the debt reserve fund to the tune of some $4.5 million, which is a fund you're supposed to set aside to pay the mortgage, the bonds, but they drained it down to balance the budget. They took another $4 million out of the Taxpayer Protection Fund, which really isn't a fund, it's just another area of the fund balance. And they drained totally another $20 million. So the budget we are living in right now spends $20 million more than it has in revenue. So the fund balance is being drained, and now we're going to come through with this election year budget to cut taxes. Now you understand how we got into a $40 million deficit when we do election year budgets. You know, right now, Dutchess County is holding some $133 million in debt, with another $177 million of authorized but not issued debt, which means they can still spend another $177 million. And when you do all that, what it's going to do is going to drive up your property taxes. So once we get the budget, let's look at it. But right now, we're still waiting to hear what this tax cut is all about.
All right, don't get comfortable. Would you address sales, let me read the exact question. Would you consider returning sales tax back to the towns and cities? And I'm trying to find a question that I thought I had about property tax, and maybe you could both talk about the pros and cons from your point of view on the different methods of getting funding.
We agree on one thing, 2 minutes is not enough time. Right now, Dutchess County, look, our sales tax in Dutchess County is currently higher and has been higher for the last 16 years than Westchester's sales tax. Our clothing tax is higher than New York City's clothing tax. In 2008 and 9, when the Democrats controlled the legislature, we exempted the clothing tax on clothes for under $110. And when the Republicans took back control 2 years later, that was one of the first taxes they imposed. And on top of having the highest sales taxes in the region, we have now cut away our sharing of those sales taxes to our communities. Since he changed the formula in 2012, the city of Poughkeepsie has lost some $17 million in sales tax. The city of Beacon, some $7.8 million in sales tax, which is, in the city of Poughkeepsie, that $2 million a year equated to 11% property tax increase. Mr. Molinaro constantly talks about how Albany shifts the cost down to the county, but this is an example where the county has shifted the cost down to the town. We need to do better and handle this situation properly, and I will work in 2023 to negotiate a more fair equity. Right now, our county sales tax, while there's been a growth of some 24%, most of the towns and cities are still at the 2012 level, which has shortchanged them, and they've had to cut services and reduce services to their people.
Which ones? Every town in Dutchess County receives 20 to 25% more in sales tax today than they did in 2013, except for the two cities. And the relationship we created with the two cities, by the way, because it was the Democratic Party and Fred Knapp who were threatening to sue Dutchess County because we didn't have a sales tax agreement. We were obligated to have one. And had that lawsuit gone through, the city of Poughkeepsie would have lost 50% of its sales tax. So we have to negotiate a contract. I didn't impose it. It's a negotiated contract approved by everybody. So in exchange for that sacrifice, we were able to save the Department of Planning. We were able to save 911. We were able to invest in the shared services that towns, villages, and cities rely on. By the way, when you net out all of the things we've done consistently with the municipalities, everyone is doing better. Except the old agreement was based on the concept that the retail sales occurred in the two cities, and towns like Wappinger and East Fishkill were left out. So we implemented a shared service, a shared revenue, that actually rewards the communities that are growing their economy, so that they would get a larger share. In fact, as I said, every community now, 20 to 25% more than they got those years ago. So the math is just wrong, and it's factually inaccurate. But at the end of the day, if government continues to get money shoveled to it over and over again, it's not likely to change the way it does business. So what we were able to do is partner with our cities and villages to pay for the drug task force that they don't have to pay for anymore. In the city of Poughkeepsie, they no longer have to pay for an officer in the Child Advocacy Center. You're going to roll all that back? At the same time, by investing in shared services with towns, villages, and cities, we've grown the ability to coordinate the delivery of service, which is more efficient and effective. We've consolidated firehouses. We've worked with municipalities to consolidate departments of public works, ultimately saving them money. Listen, we could continue to do the status quo, the same thing over and over and over again. I saw a problem, and it was time to fix it. And if we didn't fix it, the cities that you hope to protect would have lost astronomically. And by the way, the only way to undo this is to take all the money the county gets and just give it all back. But if we give it all back, I'd like the extra money that we gave the municipalities. The net in his solution is a massive decrease in county revenue. The net in our solution is shared services and government that works effectively together.
Right. Since you brought up fire districts, and there's a lengthy question here with some really good detail if you can follow it all. Regarding fire protection services, given that Arlington Fire District has one of the highest tax assessments for fire districts in New York State, Fairview Fire District has one of the highest tax rates in New York State, and all fire districts participate in mutual aid. Therefore, taxpayers in more expensive fire districts are subsidizing cheaper districts. How will you address these cost inequities?
The state of New York makes perfectly clear that the only people who can affect fire districts are fire districts. They're independent governments. Now, what we do in county government is work collectively with them. As I said, the sharing of services has enabled us to drive down costs, but I'm not going to lie to you. Fairview and Arlington District, the taxes are high. They're astronomically high. And that needs to be confronted, but it needs to be confronted by the district, or the state of New York needs to change policy. But what we've done as a county is addressed emergency. I'm a 15-year member, now 20-year member of the Tivoli Fire Department, and thank you for all of you who have supported them in their loss of the firehouse. What we've done with fire districts is better coordinate. When it comes to ambulance service, next year we're going to roll out a public authority that ultimately will allow us in districts that maybe are overtaxed and unable to access ambulance service to enter into that arrangement so that we can provide the service for them. But you have to appreciate this. It's not easy. It's not easy because of home rule. New York State says fire departments, fire districts, ambulance districts all get to act independently of one another. We don't have a right just to go in and tell them what to do. So we negotiate with them to get them there. Our shared service and consolidation plan actually brought together two fire districts. First time, I think, in the state in a very long time that we were able to get that coordination. In Beacon, better coordinating the firehouses by putting dollars on the street to help them drive down cost. At the end of the day, it's going to take continued negotiation. I think that I'm well suited to do it as a member of emergency services. And we have a great team. We have leaders all across Dutchess County, emergency response and fire, that are really committed to making the system work better. But again, you've got to recognize the independent jurisdiction of each. Now, lastly, I will tell you, I'm very happy of what just accomplished. We accomplished in just a few days ago. Eastern Dutchess County been struggling to get to reliable ambulance service. We brought together several municipalities, Pauling, Dover, Amenia, maybe Northeast, and we negotiated with them one shared contract. And now they're getting the service that they've always wanted at reduced cost. It's with NDP services, and there's reliability, there's consistency, and there's affordability. We'll do that more. But again, it takes a lot of hands-on work, negotiating with people that I've worked with for 25 years, and I promise we're going to continue at it, but you've got to respect the independent jurisdiction of each. We don't have the right to do otherwise.
In response to part of your last statement, you wanted a specific example about taxes. So in 2012, the town of Poughkeepsie, not the city, the town of Poughkeepsie received $2.36 million in sales tax revenue. It took up until 2017 for it to hit $2.367 million again. Under the new formula, under the old formula, they should be at $2.835 million a year. So they have lost almost $2 million to the town of Poughkeepsie alone. Now, to get into the question at hand about emergency services, you know, there are 37 fire districts in Dutchess County, and each one of them addresses ambulance issues separately. 80-something% of all the calls in Dutchess County that are 911 for fire districts are non-fire related. Most of them are medical calls. In the town of Wappingers, when I was supervisor, we had a major crisis with our ambulance service. We had a volunteer ambulance service that went out of business and then was replaced with a commercial carrier who wasn't meeting the obligations to our community. We had to fire them, and then we created an ambulance district where 2/3 of the cost was paid for by private insurance, and the other 1/3 of the cost, if you didn't have insurance, the town covered it. When I've been talking to folks in the Arlington Fire District, one of the highest paid districts in terms of taxes and personnel, A year ago, the fire district, the commissioners, decided they were no longer going to send ambulance buses out in the town of Poughkeepsie. So you know how they respond? They go out there with a fire truck with an EMT on board. And if they need an ambulance, they will call mutual aid from the nearby town to come into the town of Poughkeepsie. That is not a system. And now we need to do this countywide, because when you go around, we have some of the worst response times in Dutchess County regarding this. And look, some of it is a breakdown in volunteerism. We get it. A lot of folks go outside of Dutchess County every day to work. You just don't have the levels. And I've talked to some of the most well-meaning and work hard volunteer firefighters in our county who said, you know, we try to cover it as much as we can. I'm sorry, I got the stop sign. But they only can do so much with their volunteer base, and they have to supplement it with paid.
I was just told we have 5 minutes to go. Could you address, there's one about the jail project and somebody else asking about libraries and, and fire departments. Yeah, maybe just quickly, maybe for a minute, give them a minute just to say something about how you feel about that in the budget. The jail, I think the person who wrote this, yeah, I know. I'm so sorry, folks. You asked too many questions, and they're all fine questions, but we don't have time. But there's another one about unfunded mandates. Let's tackle that one because everybody talks about it. And that's, where are we?
So what's the topic? Libraries, jails, or unfunded mandates? Or libraries and jails that are unfunded mandates?
I'm going to read the person's question. We'll do unfunded mandates. No, we'll give you a minute. I mean, be as quick as you can because we want you to be able to do your closing too.
Do you have a problem if we both give a 2-minute answer and keep these people 2 minutes?
That's okay too. Unfunded mandates from Albany consume a large portion of the county budget. How will you work to stand up to Albany and say enough is enough? Mostly, what are you going to do about it?
Look, that comes from our state legislators and our state senators, and you have to work with them to be our advocates. That's why we send them to Albany. And if they're going to go up there and just pass legislation that harms us, you know, or puts costs onto our government, then we have to deal with that once it's signed into law. When I was at the New York State Bridge Authority, you know, we had a fiduciary responsibility to make decisions appropriately. And then the state of New York wanted to take over the walkway. It was under private auspices, and they asked the Bridge Authority if we wanted to take it. But by law, we couldn't take it because it was in conflict with our fiduciary responsibility. Why would we take a 130-year-old asset that had no revenue streams, that was going to be a drain on the toll system? So we couldn't say it. So what Albany did is say, okay, so you won't take it if we ask you, we're going to force you. And they passed a law saying, thou shalt take this bridge, and we owned it. So it's that type of dynamic, and that's where you need to work with the local delegation and fight for our county. When they've pulled back on medical services and mental health services to our county, they came through and the delegation gave some money to the county. Dee Barrett brought in like $5.6 million to offset those expenses. But at the same time, you know, they're good for a one-time grant. But when you get these permanent unfunded mandates, it's something that we all have to grapple with.
I just would say to your example, the town of Poughkeepsie didn't exceed the property tax cap, and if we're giving them their sales tax back, they'd have to give us the $3 million we granted them for shared services programs. 70% of Dutchess County's budget is consumed by state mandates. New York State forces more state spending onto local property taxpayers than any state in America. Any place else you live. If you lived in any other state in this country, most of the things that the state forces onto county governments would be provided for at the state level. That said, Dutchess County still, with that mandated expenditure, has been able to maintain a 1.4% annual rate of growth in spending. How? We use innovation, we use technology, and we work hand in hand with municipalities regardless of party affiliation to better deliver services. But with all due respect, I can point to counties who have executives of the same political party as those who lead in Albany and those who have different ones. It used to be, for 50 years, we argued, take back Medicaid expenditures. Somehow, that when those counties changed from red to blue, which apparently is a thing these days, I just happen to think we serve everybody, They stopped making the argument. They stopped standing up to Albany because, God forbid, we tell the people who agree with us that we disagree with them. I told George Pataki he was wrong to dismantle the Hudson Valley Greenway. I told Elliot Spitzer he was wrong to dismantle the Hudson River Greenway. And I told Andrew Cuomo the very same thing. At the end of the day, it is our job to be advocates for our people. To do it respectfully, certainly. To build the relationships, absolutely. But the new leadership in Albany doesn't necessarily understand the impact or the challenges of upstate New York. They just don't. So we have to educate them, which is why we work with downstate legislators all the time. We've had many come up here to learn about our mental health services. We show them it as a model. In fact, what we do in Dutchess is now being replicated in New York City thanks to our relationships with Andrew Hevesy and others. We had the Attorney General here just a few months ago. We talked a lot about our programs for domestic violence and our response to the opioid epidemic, and we're working across party lines to sue the EPA because they've abandoned their responsibility to the Hudson River. So we build the relationships to make the advocacy. But we have to be advocates, and we can't stop fighting for the people we serve because we don't want to take on the people with whom we agree.
All right, we now have a little bit of time for the closing statements, and Mark, you get to start. And I do want to say we contributed something to climate change. These are bamboo. And fresh for each person.
I'm just happy they're not the glasses that Brad
Yeah, I
Kendall and
know.
Kenya Gadsden are drinking out of. They seem to, I think the DA candidates drank from them. I'm just saying. I'm sure they're sweet people, but you know. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I told this story earlier today, and I want to tell it again. 6 years ago, we hosted our very first sensory-sensitive movie, actually across the road. A young mom and her 12-year-old daughter with significant mobility challenges came to that movie as part of our Think Differently campaign. She told us that was the first time she took her daughter to a movie. We were grateful. A year later, hosted the same film, another film, same event. She came back, and she pulled us aside and said, bringing my daughter to that movie a year ago gave me the courage to take her to a general matinee. They'd never been to a movie before. I'm often criticized by the people around me for taking personal the work we do. And by the way, elected officials and politicians govern and speak in broad generalities. It's a lot easier. But in Dutchess County, that story represents who we are and how we hope to live. We absolutely believe that the decisions we make have a profound impact on individual lives. And it's our job to make government work for you regardless of party. So when Rebecca Edwards wanted to launch a daycare initiative, we worked together to do it. When Aileen Rohr wants to reorganize and refocus development in the town of Hyde Park, we worked together to do it. When Greg Pulver wanted to create laws to protect animals, we did that. When Rob Rollison needs help by staffing his planning department, we pay for it. Because at the end of the day, if we can help solve problems that impact individual lives, we are doing our job and upholding our duty. And for 25 years, I have cared deeply about the people we serve. Imagine that woman needed to summon courage to go see a film, to do something you and I take for granted. At the end of the day, we meet people where they are. We don't judge them, we don't dismiss them, and we don't assume that they should be better. We meet them where we are. We value their lives and their dignity, and we try to make government work for them irrespective of who they are, what they believe, who they love, or how long they've lived here. That is a promise that we have kept these 8 years, and it is a promise that I will seek to uphold these next 4 years if you give me your support to serve as county executive.
I said this before in previous debates. I've shared my opponent's love and passion for our community. I grew up in Dutchess County, and I've been fighting for our communities for the first time when I was elected at 23 years of age. And that's why when I go around Dutchess County and I see senior citizens who need senior transportation, that's why I call for a county-wide dial-a-ride system like the one I started in Wappinger. When I go around the county and I see folks who need clean drinking water, that's why I want to advocate for them and fight for them to bring water and sewer to their neighborhood, like I did when I was supervisor in the town of Wappinger. We have so many challenges in front of us. We have young people leaving our county because they can't find work. We need to move ourselves into the 21st century in a real way. That is why I'm proposing connecting all of our homes and business with fiber optics, because fiber is the universal carrier. And if you want to do wireless, You need fiber optic. You can't do it without it, especially with the new technologies that's out there. You know, for many years, I have served this community in different capacities. As Executive Director of the New York State Bridge Authority, we operated and maintained the lowest tolls in the nation without a nickel of federal money, without a nickel of state money, and we did it in a closed system. When you look at the bridges down south in New York City to cross the Verrazano Bridge, it's $18. Up here, it's $1.25 if you have an Easy Pass, both ways. We need to work hard for the people of Dutchess County. We have an environmental crisis with our incinerator. It is polluting our air. We have a PFOA water contamination crisis appearing. We need to marshal all the work we can do together to help combat that. We can build a brighter future for Dutchess County if we come together as a community, and I know we could do that. I said this in the debate yesterday, you know, the spirit of Dutchess County is great, and to paraphrase a great president, don't ask what your neighbor could do for you, ask what you can do for your neighbor. That is the essence of who we are in this county. Thank you so much for hosting us today. This was a phenomenal event. Thank you, Mark, for your service.